Okay, in this video I want to talk about people you may see online or in person, and they seem like they just simply cannot take criticism. They will never admit they're wrong, or seldom ever admit they're wrong, and they might even get angry about it. Now, some people will put out there as though they're always the ones who are narcissists. Too much is placed under narcissism. Or narcissists. Too many things. They're not all narcissists. So they put it as though that they'll never accept they're wrong. Well, other people do too. People who that to many people means narcissist means somebody that's really bad. Okay, a really bad, abusive person. So not necessarily narcissistic. And anyway, but do they have? Do the people who do have this inability, it seems like, to say they're wrong, are they narcissistic? Well, that's to be diagnosed by somebody else. But anyway, some of it, I'm going to go back on this part, some of it could. Now, none of this is 100%, I could be wrong. And it's not everybody, it's not the only way, it's not the only type of person, okay? This is just maybe one example. And that is when, say, a person grew up in a family, a dysfunctional family, or a dysfunctional environment, where many of the elders, or even one, is what's called hypercritical, not hypo, but hypercritical, and that is that they are excessively critical. Everything that that they'll try to find everything, and even watch for it. Maybe you see that the young child or a new child. As soon as a child is born, practically, they're finding faults in what the child is doing. They're very fault finding. And they'll point it out in a very harsh manner, just so critical. Everything has to be perfect. It needs to be perfectly done, or they're just bad anyway. They're not very fair with it. They're unreasonable. A child does something like spills their milk. Children are going to spill milk. We all have probably spilled some milk, okay, in our life, or whatever we had in our cup. But these are like a parent or grandparents or anybody, or somebody that works at the school, in the cafeteria. Anybody will just throw a temper tantrum practically. And how could you do this? And what's wrong with you? Where are you? And so on. And that person, that's how they grow up, is hearing stuff like that. And, they develop basically, when they get older, maybe they are triggered when somebody says something that's very critical. And it could be, that they're really, actually, it's not them being critical, it's just, it's still critical. To tell them, hey, you're doing this, and this is how you fix it. But that other person is going to be very touchy about it. The person who was the victim as a child of a dysfunctional family, and or whomever. And it can be a lot of people. It can be you grew up in an environment where this is common. When I was young, we didn't have anything called bullying. They didn't call it bullying. When you're in school, and there were no tolerance for bullying. I didn't even know the term bullying for a lot of years, but they didn't have anything like that. It was quite common. Like thinking terms of thinking a situation like when you're growing up, and you're all learning how to read in the class, you're in elementary school, and we're told to read out loud, and somebody, it's quite common, it was then, for other students to help one another with the way to pronounce a certain word. If the student didn't know what the word, was looking at it and didn't know that word, what is that word? And other students would say it to help them. Okay, but there could be, and the mean girl, mean boy type. And they do not stop, perhaps, allegedly. Even in adulthood, they're hypercritical, and often hypocritical. Because they can't even pronounce. I've recently mentioned this, some of them are, I've seen online people who are jumping on, a person or people who cannot pronounce certain words, that it is very common for people to mispronounce them. Okay. And they just don't stop. They're very verbally abusive about it. And these same people who are very, very verbally abusive can't pronounce words like through. If they pronounce it as through. What is through? After I said that the last time, I caught myself twice saying through. I cannot think of any time ever before I said through. No, they threw it. Although, yeah, actually, I used to not make fun of it, but who was it? You remember Ellie Mae? Wasn't it Ellie Mae on the Clampets? Of the Clampets on Beverly Hillbillies. And they had a pond, and she called it a cement pond. And she would say something like, I could be wrong, that maybe I need to just, I threw it in the cement pond. I think it was. It was a long time ago. And I used to laugh because, yeah, I can see that. But I would not be all that very critical because, yeah, some people, they pronounce it that way. In fact, my man Pete, the weatherman on one of the channels here, he does it. Anyway, it's early in the morning. I woke up at 3-something, so pardon me. Anyway, and let me read my notes here. I believe people who are hypercritical and they grew up with somebody or some people who are fault-finding, very just sitting around waiting for somebody to make a mistake. Like it was just such the thrill to them to be able, to tell you, oh, see there, you didn't do right. That kind of thing. And let's see. And like I said, they don't all turn out. There's some people focus and say, oh, it's the ones that they call the bad. They think of as the bad ones. The narcissists, throw everything under that. No, I don't do that. But hey, anyway, but they're not all bad. They're not all the bad ones. They're just, can be ones who are both of them can be, the people, some of us narcissists, or the people who are not. They're just, have been, criticized too much. Somebody was sitting there watching. I do know how that is. Somebody sitting there watching what I do just so they can just jump and say something negative. See there, you're not perfect, you do this. None of us are perfect. I've never said I'm perfect. That's for certain. Because I can mispronounce some words, let me tell you. Misuse them, mispronounce them. And I'm the most educated person I know. Over 20 years, I was a career student. So, yeah, both undergraduate, then graduate, yeah. So, and I do it, okay? What's the big deal? Have they just not graduated from elementary school yet? Maybe they felt like they got some attention whenever they would pronounce it the correct way and try to help somebody, and they just loved that, all that attention they were getting. Anyway, let's move on. But see, I usually see them as rather histrionic. So, you know my sense. Although I've known some of them as adults to be diagnosed as with borderline personality disorder. So, okay, yeah, so let me look at my notes again. May just be triggered by to bad memories. Yeah, you know, I already mentioned that, so let's see. And here's another one. You know, I mentioned this online. I have seen this in several genres, and there are times when I probably have done it myself, and that is, but sometimes it is the truth too. Like, you know, somebody online is talking about what they've done or what happened, and they say that it wasn't their fault. Okay, or somebody was critical, and they were fault finding. And there might not even be anybody there. It might be just, you know, like I said, they're triggered, no memory, and they just see that somebody would do that, would be critical, because that's what they've known. But they can't see themselves as the one who's at fault, so they blame another person or others. They'll put it off on, you know, anybody that they can. Like I said, an invisible other, or maybe a visible other. But I've seen it in several genres, and like I said, I'm not perfect, definitely. But you know, like if like you can watch, you know, I don't want to pick on any genre really, so I'm not picking on it. But I've seen it recently. Well, I've been watching them for several years. Like I just gave one, but here's another one. It's like they're doing these delivery jobs, and they say that somebody, I just mentioned this recently, that they were tip baiting, people who were tip baiting, and then they go out there and they take the tip back. Well, it could be they took the tip back because they didn't like the service, whether it's the person who was delivering or the service in general. So they took the tip back. I mean, you can't have it both ways. Many of these say, no tip, no trip. I keep saying trick. But it's no tip. Told you I'm not perfect. No tip, no trip. Okay, so if they get a delivery order, and the person didn't tip, put the tip up front, they won't take it. Nope. So they're not going to do that. Make the trip. So, and the other one is that the other end of it, they say that, you know, the person does pay up front, and then the person doesn't like the service, so they take it back. Most things, when you tip after the service has been completed, not before. So you can't have it both ways. Say, we're demanding that they paid before we go out, and then get ticked off when they take back from it, or they lower the tip, and instead say, well, they were just tip baiting. They're trying, you know, making us take it because the tip was up there at first. You can't have it both ways. But they want to, because maybe you need to see they didn't like the service. Okay, and that maybe you're wrong. Ooh, to some people it's so scary to hear the words wrong. But I can understand that too at the same time. I can. Because some of us, many of us, I did, grew up in that of somebody being hypercritical. No, it wasn't just one. I mean, the school system, seriously. I grew up in, well, not the school system. Many of the students were like that, and they were probably taught this way, allegedly. All of it's allegedly. I like when people say that. Oh, true crime, allegedly, but they need, in the way they need to, because it's just their opinion, and opinions can be wrong. And anyway, but I grew up, and it was just so common. You know, I had just mentioned a year or so ago that I wasn't still, but that I had problems with caring too much about what other people think. Don't so much now. I worked on it. I really don't. Not so much. But it was funny. It was right before I started making this video. I was thinking about this. I was writing the notes and all. And then, I don't know what happened, but I was thinking about the book A Room of One's Own. And I was thinking Mary Wollstonecraft, and it was actually Virginia Woolf. And that was so long ago, and I looked it up. I said, what is the connection there? Was that her pen name? I can't remember. And I had actually written paper on Wollstonecraft and Simone de Beauvoir. I cannot pronounce that right. Never heard it pronounced, ever. But a big major paper at graduate school on that. But it's so long ago. Anyway. And it was funny because can I accept the fact that I'm wrong? And yes, I can, but did you hear me? I said that was so long ago. But that's the truth. It was so long ago. You see, but it just depends on and how the person seems, comes off. Because, you know, like, that they have to defend themselves. You know, and that's possibly because of the way that they were raised and having constant, arrows and darts thrown at them. Every time they made the most, insignificant or, what's the word I'm looking for? Just such a little bitty thing. Or a common thing, kids spill milk. Okay, at times they're going to spill their milk, their orange juice or whatever their juice. It's going to happen. Good possibility. But then having a parent or a grandparent or a caregiver, a teacher, like I said, somebody who works in the cafeteria at school to make such a big deal out of it. Yeah, that's just, in my view, that is not at all healthy. At all. So, anyway, let's see. Look at my notes again. I wrote more than once, but I did wake up at 3 o'clock. See? That thing, that is so common. And I'm serious. It's just so common. And, let's see. But I keep writing the same thing. I kept writing to point out, at the end of it, I said, point out that they're not all bad people. They might just be touchy because of it. And it's a hard thing to do because, a hard thing to change. And I can tell you that, like I just said, twice. I hinted at it. See? That we have such a strong need to defend ourselves. And it's in our language. Those of us who've been harshly judged, hypercritical people, and it is, it's hard to get out of a pattern of what we grew up in, because otherwise, what would happen otherwise? It sounds like I'm defending myself too. Again, but what would? If a person never defended themselves, they just accepted it, or they just ignored it. But if they never, like some would say, like I just said, defend themselves against such. Well, what would it be to not feel any need to ever defend yourself? Which one would be bad? Which one would be good? When and in which situation? Nobody can tell you that. There's no one size fits all. In my view, I could be wrong. That's it. I've said many times. But I don't see it. I don't think of it in terms that if you always defend yourself, that's a bad thing. Or if you never defend yourself, that's a bad thing. Because sometimes it could be something as easy as, is this person off their rocker? That's a funny way of putting it. But is this person abusive? Or is this person just, you don't know what, like I said, off their rocker, you don't know what's going to happen next. If you defend yourself, it's one of those, you have to be in the situation, and even then you might not have the correct response. and then some stranger who's not even in that situation, doesn't even know the character says this is one thing that you're supposed to do, one size fits all. That's BS, in my opinion. Like I said, most educated person I know in these fields, in the social and behavioral. Okay. But why? I should say right there, that's a defense. Some would say, some might not say, that you give your credentials to be able to say what you're saying, but still being able to admit that you could be wrong. Now you're giving your credentials. That's what I do when I say this stuff. I'm giving, a shortened version of my credentials. And then there are people that you can see out there who have no credentials. They're putting out there, they really know, and here's one thing you do. This is the way you respond to a narcissist. And that's actually setting up people. It could be setting them up for a world of hurt. Seriously. It could be setting them up for abuse. Really, because they don't really know which situation you're in. And they're just doing it in general, just, saying, this is what you do. No, it could be bad, really bad. Anyway, it's only probably like 6 o'clock in the morning. So, I wrote that one out, and I did another one about devils in disguise. Maybe I'll get to that one after this, later on. Allegedly. I like that word. I know that didn't fit. See, they're defending myself. But at the same time, if you don't do it, you don't defend, don't say something like that. What? Kind of arrogant, huh? Anyway, allegedly. Okay, I think I should wrap this up. Maybe I need to go back to bed. Talk to y'all in another video. Bye.